Why don't more single-player games have campaign co-op? This topic came up while me and a friend were trying to figure out what to play, and while browsing my library I noticed that I owned a lot of single-player games. And it got me thinking, why don't more games have campaign co-op? Now you could say, why don't you just play a multiplayer game? Multiplayer and co-op, at least to me, mean two different things. You say multiplayer, games like Overwatch 2, Apex Legends, and Marvel Rivals come to mind. You say co-op, games like Deep Rock Galactic, Minecraft, and Baldur's Gate 3 come to mind. The focus of each also varies between the two. In multiplayer games, the focus is typically on PvP, where most of the time you have to outperform the enemy team. And sometimes the enemy team consists of Jimmy Adderall and the Sweat Squad, whereas in co-op games the focus is typically on PvE, where you just have to outperform the enemy AI. And at most, if the AI is too strong, you just have to optimize your build or just get better at teamwork. These are both vastly different experiences. I would say most of the time multiplayer games are a bit more high stakes, whereas PvE or co-op experiences are typically more mellowed out with lower stakes. Something else to take into consideration is that sometimes you do want to play with your friends, but you don't feel like dealing with the stress that comes with online multiplayer. This is why co-op experiences are so important. You get to play with your friends without having to worry about Jimmy Adderall and his friends. Which brings us back to the question, why don't more single-player games have campaign co-op? Now yes, I will admit that there are games that offer campaign co-op, but there are also games that easily could have it but for some reason or another just choose not to. For example, Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed, to my knowledge, still hasn't had a game that has campaign co-op to this day. Now you could say Assassin's Creed Unity, but Assassin's Creed Unity had mission-based co-op, which was separate from the campaign. The only thing you could do in Unity was just for the most part roam the overworld with your friend. And while this isn't the worst thing, it was very disappointing that you couldn't progress the story or do any side quests while playing with a friend. It would kind of be like if you played GTA 5 online but you couldn't do any missions or heists, and all you could do would be roam the city of Los Santos. Granted, it would be fun for a bit but eventually get boring. Another thing I do find very strange is that Ubisoft is also the same company that makes Far Cry. Why is this weird? Because Far Cry has campaign co-op all the way up until its most recent installment, Far Cry 6. It's kind of insane that Assassin's Creed doesn't have campaign co-op, so they can do it, but they simply just choose not to for some reason. There are also a lot of lore reasons in Assassin's Creed as to why they could have co-op. For example, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, a previous entry before Unity, the whole plot is you building up the Assassin Order again. It's weird that you never get to benefit from this so-called Brotherhood that totally exists, but you never get to really see it in action, at least in a gameplay sense. And it's not just Assassin's Creed that could benefit from adding co-op. There are other series as well, like another example could be any Bethesda game. I would love to be able to play through games like Skyrim or Fallout 4 with a friend if it had campaign co-op. Not only are you playing with a friend, you could also implement strategies that you couldn't do beforehand. A Skyrim example would be, say, if your friend was doing a stealth archer build and you were doing a two-handed weapon build. You could both play it to your strengths. For example, you go in with your two-handed weapon, run in and draw aggro and just start killing things, while your friend just sits in the background like a sniper picking off whatever you don't kill. That sounds like fun. And Todd Howard, if you are watching, maybe Elder Scrolls 6 has co-op campaign? Now, sometimes you can't add co-op because of lore reasons, but if you want a lore reason to justify co-op, there is a solution that allows you to add co-op to pretty much every game. Not all, but most. The Root of the Mercenary. Think of a game that you'd like to have campaign co-op. Now imagine that if the main character got help in the campaign, it's because they hired a mercenary. This excuse would work for a lot of universes, or probably the most based way to go about it is just to add it and not acknowledge it in the lore. Halo Combat Evolved does this and they don't really ever acknowledge it. You just now have two Master Chiefs running around. Now, I haven't really been talking about how we could balance this, and there are easy ways to go about this, but they aren't perfect. For example, one of the easier ways is to simply just increase the amount of health that the enemies have depending on the amount of players. Programming the AI to be smarter about how it goes about fights. For example, say your friend has a tank build and you're kind of a squishier build. Just have the AI go after the squishier people and prioritize low health targets. Now, of course, game balance is a lot harder than just doing these things, but this is what I assume at least a very easy start that you can build off of. Now, there could also be some technical reasons why co-op isn't implemented into a game. Maybe the studio that makes it is too small and just doesn't have the resources, or they just simply don't have the know-how. Well, at least for bigger studios, I feel like adding co-op would be within the realm of possibility. Now, the main reason for this video even really being made is that hopefully it convinces developers to make more games that have campaign co-op. Because sometimes you're just looking for a way to hang with your friends while having some fun in the process. And co-op games do this very well. For the most part, while playing a co-op game, you don't have to worry about the stresses of multiplayer. You're allowed to goof around and have some fun, which should be the focus of all games. And yes, while I do dabble in competitive games from time to time, sometimes I'd rather just not potentially break a keyboard during a session, and sometimes I just want to have fun.